Right, welcome everybody. And also, although I can't actually see, welcome to any members of the public and press, but I wish to remind the public and or press that this meeting is held, albeit being held in public, is not a public meeting, and there are not opportunities on this occasion to take questions or comments from the public or press. I wish to remind members that the meeting is being live on YouTube and is recorded. And I ask all those present to mute yourselves when not speaking to assure sound quality. And also please use the raise hand feature if you wish to speak, and to wait until invited by the chair or nudged by the Democratic Services Officer. Democratic Service Officer will be monitoring the hands raised, but members should keep their hand raised until invited to speak or decide they do not wish to.
Chair,
Once called upon, please put your hand down. Hello.
Chair, I'm really sorry to interrupt, but you appear to be having, I think it's you rather than me. You might be having some signal problems. I don't know if the rest of the committee, the rest of the committee members are nodding, so it might be helpful if you turned your camera off, and then the sound quality might be better.
Okay. Well, I'll go back to in the event of a link failure. So of the
Chair,
fail, call a short adjournment to 5 minutes to determine where.
Morse code.
could perhaps if everybody turned their cameras off, it might help with the sound quality, if that's okay, and we'll see how it goes. Chair, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but we still couldn't hear everything that you were saying, unfortunately.
Okay. Just bear with me. Bad neck. Oh dear. Okay, I'll start again.
That's much better, Chair.
Should any aspect of the conference link fail, the chair will call a short adjournment of up to 5 minutes to determine whether the link can be quickly re-established. In the event of link failure, the remote members will be deemed to have left the meeting at the point of failure of the equipment, and if the link cannot be re-established before the end of the meeting, then the presumption will be that the meeting should continue to deal with the item. I therefore call upon apologies for absence. Sorry, did we hear that?
Yeah.
We did, Chair. Sorry.
Sorry, there you go.
We've received apologies from Councillor Yanker, and we've also received a resignation from Mr. Johnson, so we do now have a vacancy on the committee, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. We all accept these apologies, Acceptor?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Right, agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Ask have any members have any interests to declare? I'll take that as a no then. Right. Agenda item 3, minutes of the previous meeting. I just wish to check that the minutes I have in front of me are the minutes of a meeting of the Community Scrutiny Committee held on Monday, the 3rd of Feb 2020 at 6 o'clock in the meeting room G3G4. Those in attendance were Councillor Carter and myself. Others named are absent tonight.
I'll propose then, Chairman, if I may.
Okay, in that case then I'll have to second then.
Okay.
All those that were in attendance, are you in favour?
Yes. Only
Okay.
2 of us.
Okay. Right, for the Democratic Services Officer, I will sign in due course. I have a copy here.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to move on now to agenda item 4, which is the terms of reference, and to ask members to consider the terms of reference, and I will need a proposer and seconder, and I might need clarification, but I think the only change is under membership, and there's inclusion of 4, which I will read out. The chair is appointed at the annual general meeting of full council, and a vice chair may be appointed by majority decision of the committee. Over to Anthea.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just for clarity for members, this aligns the terms of reference with the terms of reference for other committee meetings, where it's set out how the chair is appointed. So with regards to the scrutiny meetings, the chair is appointed at the annual general meeting each year, and we don't have a standing vice chair. So in the event that the chair is not available to attend a meeting or is absent on the evening of a meeting, then it falls to the committee to appoint a vice chair in their absence by a majority decision. Other than that, all of the terms of reference remain the same as previously.
Thank you, Anthea. May I have a proposer?
I'll propose.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Well, I'll second Eric Carter.
Right, thank you. That's Raj to propose and Councillor Eric Carter to second. All those able to vote in favour?
Yeah.
Aye. I'll put my hand up just to say, yep.
That's carried, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Just bear with me. Right. Thank you for that. I'd like now to move on to agenda item 5, which is a scrutiny review of the local plan. I'd like to invite Catherine Kinnison, the Director of Housing, Employment and Infrastructure, and if they are sharing together, and also Gavin Ashford, Strategic Planning Team Leader. And what I'd like to clarify from those who are going to present, are you happy with questions during, or would you like to have questions at the end?
I'm relaxed, Chair. I'm happy to take them as we go. If there are sort of urgent comments from members, otherwise there's a sort of a flow to the slides. So if members prefer to wait to the end, we'll pause then for some discussion. But very happy to, if questions come to mind as we go, if people want to pose them, that's no problem.
Okay. I'd just like to clarify as whether the Cabinet member for Economy, Housing, Transport and Infrastructure will also wish to join in for this item. That's David Wright, Councillor David Wright.
Hi, Chair. I'm more than happy to engage in questions and comments at the end of the discussion following the presentation, if that's helpful. And I'm attending tonight to support both officers and yourselves. Lovely.
Thank you for that, David. Right, over to Catherine and/or Gavin.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for the invitation to come along tonight and the interest that the Scrutiny Committee is showing in the local plan. As you'll be aware, we launched the review of the local plan at the start of the year, and we've reached the first sort of statutory stage of the plan making. As you know, the local plan's a key statutory document in terms of both shaping and identifying levels of growth and development in the borough, but also shaping the communities that we have within the borough and the services that we provide, and the places, the design of the development within our borough. It's a fairly lengthy process developing a local plan. There's a number of stages, as many of you will be familiar with, of development and consultation. And as I say, we've reached the first formal stage of that, which is termed the issues and options stage. I won't steal Gavin's thunder, but just to say this, as I say, is the first point of engagement or formal engagement, and we are currently out for public consultation. Launched that a few weeks ago, and that will now run until early January, and that has been confirmed in the last couple of days, and it again is a response obviously to the current situation and the desire to encourage and enable as many people as possible to comment. We're very keen to work with Scrutiny and to do that in a collaborative way if that's something that Scrutiny wish to do. And so what Gavin is going to do is briefly run through a presentation giving a bit of background to the issues and options document. And then we've proposed a couple of areas linked with key policy aspects within the local plan, where we're suggesting to Scrutiny that they might wish to get a bit more involved and to support us in developing those policy areas. But that's clearly for further discussion and questions at the end of the presentation. So I'll hand over to Gavin at this point. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just share my slides now. Share my screen. Sorry. Okay. Is that on everyone's screens?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No problem. So just to recap, we're at the issues and options stage of the local plan review. So what does the issues and options stage cover? This is the stage covers proposals for amendments to or potentially new development management policies that we might need to consider. It covers the options for the scale and distribution of growth in the borough, so we'll be consulting on that as part of an open consultation. It's the first stage of consultation, so this is an early opportunity for stakeholders and the public to contribute to the process and to give us their views and feedback. And there'll be further opportunity for Scrutiny to input as the process kind of rolls along, and input into the preferred options stage, which is the next formal part of the process. So how can Scrutiny contribute? What we're kind of proposing is a collaborative approach, offering advice, guidance, and examples of best practice from other local planning authorities. We kind of identified two areas where we thought you could add depth and weight to the process. One is around how the local plan can support the evolving role of town district centres. That's a key issue for us. And the other area is around the role of the local plan in continuing to protect and enhance and create new areas of green space and biodiversity and ecology in the borough. So just moving on then, in terms of the evolving role of town centres, some of the issues that we face, and I think these are very topical issues and everyone will be aware of them, obviously with the current kind of COVID-19 recession, that's having an impact on hospitality and retail sectors, which are the kind of backbone of the town centres. There's a decline in the traditional retail role of centres that we're seeing, and this is through kind of vacant units and other interests there. And there's also competition that's growing from the internet, and that's accelerated with the kind of current situation that we're in. And some of this is leading to replacement of kind of retail with kind of lower value uses that kind of impact upon town centres' viability and vibrancy in the future. In terms of the local plan's vision for centres, what we see is, there's a continuing role here for centres as hubs for enterprise, innovation and culture. These are well-connected areas, and we want to, grow that with connections to walking and cycling, so people can kind of come in and make local journeys. Public transport, they act as hubs, but electric vehicles as well. So these are destinations that people come and spend dwell time in. So we obviously need to kind of think about how people will travel in the future. Encouraging more local shopping, that's been a shift that we've seen through the current situation where people have kind of come back to things like the butcher and the grocer and done sort of some more local shopping, and how can we encourage that and further that. Providing access to green space and parks. So Oaken Gates has got Hartshill Park, Newport's got Victoria Park, there's Bowring at Wellington. There's green space that we need to kind of maintain that access and grow that areas. Also importantly planning for a greater mix of uses in centres, recognising the fact that the traditional retail role, as that declines, we need to think about what might replace that. Protecting the heritage and ensuring good design in centres, and I think going forward that's a really important point in terms of encouraging people to come into the area and come into centres and use those parts of the borough. And we want an environment that promotes health and well-being. Some of this is around things like the healthy eating environment, so making sure that there's not a predominance of uses such as hot food takeaway, so we control that. And also climate-ready buildings, so advanced methods of construction might be a way, might be something we want to encourage, but also renewable energy provision within centres. So the role of the Telford and Wrekin local plan in this area, this would be encouraging new uses that could bring in footfall to centres. So thinking about things like leisure provision, in its broadest sense, commercial opportunities as well as potentially residential. We need to provide an appropriate balance of uses within centres. So we want to guard against the predominance of any one single use. And also, as part of that, is considering the role of residential uses in regeneration of centres, and again, it's part of considering the balance of uses. We need to address changes in the use class order and how we might support centres going forward in that regard, and securing contributions to support infrastructure priorities for local centres. We need to look at any kind of through the local plan review site opportunities that could support the regeneration of centres. So brownfield sites that might be derelict and could come forward as part of that process and be identified. In terms of policy proposals for market towns and district centres, we're looking to support uses that provide direct services to the public. They increase footfall and support other uses. Again, mentioned about controlling non-retail uses, making sure there's not an over-predominance of any one single use, supporting out the use of outdoor spaces, and also possibly review of the boundaries of primary shopping areas. So where retail's contracting, do we want to kind of look at the review of those areas, not town centre boundaries, but primary shopping areas. In terms of electric vehicles, we'd be looking at charging points, proposing to try and secure charging points in residential developments, but also commercial developments as well. So we might be looking at, if you're looking at sort of parking provision in town centres, for example, that could be a certain proportion as part of a supermarket development, for example, and then maybe asking them or securing the ability to kind of up that provision as interest in electric vehicles grow. Renewable energy generation, so we're looking to secure across the board, I think, an increase in renewable energy provision. Urban greening, so we want to see greener town district centres as well as greener kind of urban areas. Design policy, we'd be looking at climate mitigation and development, so how can we kind of encourage better design and design that delivers climate change ready buildings. And importantly, housing. So we currently apply the nationally described space standards. We're looking at what we do about space standards and housing mix. And I think this is quite pertinent and topical in terms of people's ability to live and work or live-work units going forward. Questions that Scrutiny could potentially help us with. So we'd like to understand what other local authorities are doing about these things. So planning for the loss of retail in centres, I think that's a universal issue across the country. Controlling uses within centres, but being able to be flexible. So there are certain things we might want to control. So we don't want a predominance of hot food takeaways, but to be flexible on other uses that might bring in footfall and create vibrant town centres. Adapting centres for climate change. So what are other areas doing about that, and how can we kind of learn from them and bring that into the local plan? And the other one is promoting health and well-being and healthy food environments in local centres and town centres. So did you want to cover any questions now in terms of that area? Because the next one is the second point about green space and the natural environment.
Does anybody have any questions at the moment? Oh,
No.
take that as a no. So carry on.
No problem. So in terms of green space, biodiversity and ecology, so the issues that we're facing here around balancing the benefits of growth with the protection and enhancement of the natural environment, tackling climate change, needing to improve public health and the role that the environment can play in that, and also increasing sustainable travel, so looking at how people might travel in the future. Telford's a very green area. 75% of Telford is composed of green space. We've got 17 local nature reserves, either designated or in the pipeline within the borough, and 89% of households within the borough within 300 metres of accessible green space. And we've got over 2,500 hectares of green network that covers Telford and Newport. So it's a very green area in that regard. In terms of the local plan vision for green space and ecology and biodiversity, we're looking at a forest community approach. This reflects Telford and Wrekin's kind of unique offer as a very green area and how we can incorporate that better within the local plan. We're looking at protecting inner urban green space. This includes local nature reserves, parks and interconnected green networks. And that's an important point about allowing species and ecology to kind of travel between areas, which is what it needs to do. We're looking to increase investment in biodiversity and green space through developer contributions and get a better mix of those. Realising opportunities around urban greening, so that's a new area that we want to kind of develop. Delivering quality green space on new developments, so where we get new developments coming forward, be more specific and forward about what we want to see on those. And we want to ensure access to green space for all. The role of the local plan in this area. We're looking to identify new areas for protection, so potentially new local nature reserves and local wildlife sites, where there's evidence to support that. Formalise the approach to regulatory changes around things like biodiversity net gain and great crested newt licensing, GCNL. Looking to enhance protection of ancient woodland, so there's been changes in the national tree strategy that we're incorporating into the proposals, and also climate change benefits from urban greening. Formal planning boundary for parks, so a boundary that allows us to control development in and around parks, impacts upon parks. Clarification around the request for play and recreation facilities and developer contributions in that area, and the long-term management of open space. In terms of policy proposals, so biodiversity and geodiversity will be reflecting national changes within those areas. Trees, we'll be looking to strengthen around the forest community approach. Open space, we're looking at policy protection for parks, play and recreation, obviously long-term management. Biodiversity net gain, again, that's reflecting national changes. Urban greening, now this is around would allow us to seek a proportion of green space or green infrastructure on development sites. And currently we're kind of considering around 30 to 40% of those sites to be green in terms of the policy proposals, but we've got further work to do on that. Also private amenity space, so the provision and the control of garden space, but also the protection of garden space as well. So where you sometimes see people looking to release garden space for development, we'd look to try and control that. In terms of questions where Scrutiny could help, so again, it's about what other areas are doing, what advice and guidance you can help us kind of provide for us on those areas. There's alternative concepts to, are other areas using alternative concepts to the forest community approach? In the kind of umbrella to green space and natural environment. Planning for green infrastructure and urban greening, how are they doing that, and in terms of what their policy proposals are and how they're kind of delivering those things, and how they're looking to protect green spaces overall. And also an important area for us is around what they're doing in terms of proposals to secure green space on new developments within their areas. Just in terms of the next steps then, so the issues and options consultation has now been extended to the 8th of January, as Catherine mentioned. We're doing lots of the consultation online, so we're engaging with parish and town councils, also stakeholders, and direct engagement where people submit comments onto the planning portal. The next next third option, so this will be summer 2021. This is the draft plan, so this is the plan as it would be rewritten, and also kind of site allocations that we'd propose at that point in time. Okay.
Right, lovely. Thank you very much for that, Gavin. Right, over to you, members. Do you have any questions for either Catherine, Gavin, or even David Wright? Oh, Eric, over to you.
Yeah, just a couple of things. One thing is, do we have a copy of this presentation that we can have, please, as soon as possible?
Yeah, I think that should be fine.
And the other thing is, I think it's very, very noble, shall we say, and currently it is the issue locally and nationally that we do look for green network, and we, as much as possible, where we have got sites coming forward to development, although we need housing, we also need housing to be in areas where there is green. So trees, very, very important. So we don't take down trees, we actually put more trees into the network, because it's very, very important that we protect that sort of stuff, and I hope that's part of the council's policy.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, David, over to you.
Well, I just wanted to follow on from what Eric's just said. It's nice to see you. Well, I can't quite see you, Eric. 2 nights on the run we've been doing Scrutiny together. In terms of,
I'm there now.
There you are, mate. Very good. We've known each other a very long time, haven't we?
True.
In terms of what Scrutiny could help with, I think on that agenda, the points that Eric makes is, but potentially, and I'm not asking, not telling you what to do. It's just part of Gavin's presentation really was about whether there are areas of really good practice used by other local authorities. I don't care what their political persuasion is. I'll pinch any good idea, whoever produces it. What are other authorities doing on this agenda? Is is it working? Are the lessons we can learn? Do we need to do something different? I was watching a fascinating documentary the other night on urban greening about using these green walls in buildings and looking at planting in buildings using different tools and techniques. Really interesting. I've got a meeting later this week about sustainable development, off-site construction. All of these kind of issues are really interesting. And if we can explore what other councils are doing and see whether there are opportunities for us to develop those agendas, that would be really helpful. Clearly, we've done quite a bit of that work as well as an officer corps, but it's something really interesting, I think, for members to engage in, looking at what best practice there is and whether we can adapt that. And one of the points I would make is that urban green space is really, really valuable. I was walking up on the Cockshut in my ward, which is an incredible area of green space, and is a massive asset for that community. So, we've got to think about how we continue to protect those areas, which we will and are, and how we develop that kind of environment amongst new development as well. So, work around that area would be really, really positive.
Thank you for that, David. Do you have a response, Eric? Or
yeah, what I would say, I agree with everything that David said, and one other point I would make, which actually was made last night at the Scrutiny Committee, because some of these link very, very closely to last night's meeting, is the utilisation of new developments incorporating electric charging points. And this should be, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to planning, this should be one of the requirements that planners put in place, that this is actually done, not put in later, but done during the building process. So we have the points, so when people do move into these new developments, the charging points are there. Because if we are encouraging nationally, and we are nationally, the growth of electric vehicles are only sensible if you've got somewhere to charge them. So I think it's a very important point.
thank you. Right, does anybody else have anything to ask? There's one thing, if I may, I noticed one of the suggestions, which I think is something that we could work with the Environment Scrutiny Committee, is the measures that the local plan could take to help tackle climate change. I don't know if you have any views on that, David. Oops.
You're on mute, David.
You're on mute.
I'm sorry. That'll be the phrase of the year, won't it? I think you're on mute. I think well, Gavin might want to come back in a bit more detail, but I think there is some work definitely to cross-reference all of these elements of strategy development. So whether it be the local plan, the housing strategy, the transport strategy, it all needs to be benchmarked against our wider strategy on climate change. I don't know whether you want to add anything at this point, Gavin.
Yeah, I think we're working very closely, councillors, with officers across the authority. So this is very much a corporate document in terms of the impact on transportation, climate change, education. So we're working with lots of the officers in those areas to make sure that we're picking up on all the kind of key themes that they're bringing through, in particular on climate change. So we work very closely with Harge in that area.
Lovely, thank you for that. Right, does anybody else have any questions or etc., etc.? Okay, in that case, I'd like to thank the obviously, as the committee, we need to act steps, and as we've been given some, if you like, hints as what we could get on with, and I think it's probably something, if not already, we probably factor into our working programme, if everybody's agreed on that.
Yeah.
We've got the start date. We know the consultation is going on to the 8th of January. Then obviously it's got to be reviewed, and that, so there's time for us to, have a good look and see how we can contribute. So if we're all happy with that.
Now this will be in the work programme, I presume, Chair, won't it?
Well, I think that's what we need to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if we're all happy with for that, I'd like to obviously thank Catherine and Gavin, and in that case, I'd like to move on, if that's okay, to just checking there's no hands up, to obviously agenda item 6, which is the work programme review.
Okay.
Chair,
go on, Councillor
Yes.
Ryan.
Carry on.
Chair, I think it's probably appropriate that I leave you to it at this point, because clearly it's important you set your own agenda. I have an ulterior motive. Having said that, it's my wife's birthday, and I've promised to go and have a bite to eat with her now. So I will, on those two grounds, if that's all right, Chairman, leave you at this point. Is that okay?
Yep. Well, thank you. And happy
Congratulations. It's my wedding anniversary as well, but I can't go anywhere because all the pubs are shut.
Happy birthday to you from us, Dave.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
And happy anniversary, Eric.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you
have a
very
good evening.
sorry, I wasn't sure whether, and same to you. I wasn't sure whether Catherine had got a hand up.
You're
I
on
think
mute.
she was just saying goodbye,
That's
Chair.
better.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
right.
was. I think the only thing I was going to say, Chair, I'm conscious that although we have extended the deadline to early January, as Gavin alluded to, we will be doing obviously further work to develop policy as we run into June. So subject to, I guess, you determining how you want to undertake a piece of work, which feels like you want to focus on that theme of green spaces from the conversation that, well, you're going to come on and talk about that, I know, in a few minutes. That if, a little bit more time is needed after that January date, then, we're happy to continue to work with Scrutiny. So, yes, it was just to manage the timelines as you go into that discussion.
That's lovely. Thank you, Catherine. Right, I presume I hand over to Anthea now, do I?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wondered whether you were happy if obviously they're welcome to stay, but if you were happy for Gavin and Catherine to depart if they felt they wanted to at this stage.
Yeah.
Very
Thank you,
welcome
Chair.
to stay, but if you want to leave, that's fine. So thank you very much.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Chair. No, appreciate
Bye-bye.
you listening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, thank you.
So the current work programme is on page 15 of your pack. The first item relates to housing strategies in relation to, it was formerly known as homelessness and housing. And originally the proposal had been that that would come to a December or January scrutiny date. I think I'm probably going to be at risk of repeating myself somewhat this evening, because a lot of what I'm about to say is in light of the fact that there's the local plan that you now want to look at. It's probably not practicable for it all to be fitted in within the same time scale. So if you want to focus on the local plan, which from the discussion this evening, it seems like you would like to, understandably, then I would suggest that the housing strategies perhaps are moved to the first quarter of next year, so maybe a February or an early March meeting potentially, but to keep that under review depending upon how the local plan work goes.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, fine with that. Okay.
The second item is social and private rented housing, and this was really a briefing for the committee to understand the rules that govern both social housing and then private rented sector and the differences between them. It stems from a conversation we had, I think at the last meeting, or it might have been the previous meeting, I can't quite recall. And again, I would suggest that we push that back until the first quarter of next year, if members are in agreement. Again, to free up the time to work on the local plan.
Yeah.
Particularly if there is any cross-cutting work with the Environment Scrutiny Committee as well.
Yeah.
Indeed, yep, that's fine.
The council communications, this was initially 3 separate items regarding various aspects of communications from the council. So communication with residents and towns and parish councils, community hubs, and then stronger communities. And it was suggested that that be wrapped into one, which we've done. But you will recall that there was plans to implement a new structure in the communications team. That's only just been concluded and it's just bedding in at the moment. Clearly, at the minute, a lot of the communications team work is focused on the pandemic and supporting residents. And so, again, at the moment, would suggest that we don't look at that until at least the early part of next year, but it may be something that you want to, if you want to focus on it and do a good job with it and get really in depth with all of the options, it might be something you want to push forward into the next work programme for the next municipal year, because this year you're going to have the local plan and then some of the other things that we've just discussed. And I think it's actually quite a nice piece of work, by which point the communications team, the new structure will have been in place for about 6 months. They'll have developed their experience and they'll be able to tell you all of the developments and innovation that they've been working on as well. So it might be something that we want to move into the next municipal year.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Fine. Yeah.
And then the integrated transport strategy. Again, this is quite an in-depth item.
Apologies, Anthea. We seem to have lost Councillor Meta.
Oh, yes, we have.
Oh.
Could we just pause and see if we can join him back into the meeting? Is that all right, Councillor Turley?
Yes, it is. Yes, please. Yeah.
Let's see if we can get him back. I'm just trying to dial him in now. We've got you back, Councillor Meta. We lost you for a moment.
Yeah, I was trying to get back. I don't know what happened.
I'm not sure how much you've heard, Councillor Meta.
All I heard was Councillor Meta.
We've been. Did you hear me going through any of the work programme?
No, because it went off.
Right. Okay. Chair, are you happy for me just to recap on where we are?
Yes,
is that all right?
Please do. Yes, please.
So,
yep.
Councillor Meta, page 15 is the start of the work programme.
Yeah.
And the first 2 items, I'm proposing that we consider reviewing those in the early part of the next calendar year, depending upon how the work with the local plan progresses, because the local plan is obviously quite a comprehensive piece of work.
That's fine.
Then the next page 16, the council communications. We noticed we'd lost you at that point, but we were just talking about potentially moving that into the next municipal year, because the new communication structure will have been in place for 6 months then,
Yep,
and they'll
makes
be
sense.
bedded in, and it's probably quite a nice piece of work to focus on
Yep.
and really make a difference there.
Agree, yeah.
And then I was just moving on to the integrated transport strategy, which again is quite a large piece of work. And if the committee is going to be busy with the local plan, then it's proposed that we again revisit the integrated transport strategy at the start of the calendar year to try and pick an appropriate time to look at it. There will be overlaps with some of the other work that this committee and other committees are looking at. So we want to make sure that we're not duplicating work with other committees, or that we do some cross-cutting work if we need to. And that was as far as I'd got. So the next item on page 17 is essentially part of what we've been looking at today. So it's part of the local plan. So
thank you.
Again, that can be carried forward. The final item on page 17 was civil parking enforcement. You will recall, I think it was at the last meeting, we discussed having a review a year after we'd introduced it.
Yeah.
But then we'd halted enforcement during the lockdown 1. And so it was agreed that we would look at this a little bit later. So we're currently still working to a February-March date for the civil parking enforcement update and a review of how it's been since it's been implemented.
That's fine.
And then the final item was the community safety partnership, and particularly the violence reduction partnership. And this is something that normally comes regularly annually to the scrutiny committee, but the community safety partnership is currently having a strategic review, and so it was proposed that we look at that in March to allow that to be undertaken, and then we can move forward. But that hasn't changed since the last meeting, so I don't think there's any surprises there. And that was everything on the work programme. From tonight's discussions, the committee now needs to consider what you want to focus on in terms of the local plan. And you heard there were some suggestions this evening, and certainly the green spaces came through loud and clear. So Chair, it's a matter for you, but maybe you ask members to give that some thought and then come back to you within the next few days, next week, and then we can get it added to the work programme, and I can then liaise with the relevant officers about how we progress that as well.
Yes, that'll be good. And also, if I can have a link, perhaps in the next few days with Kieran, perhaps, and have a little discussion. I was brought out in the presentation, I think will be ideal. But as you say,
He's gone again.
Etc. is a good one to start with. And then,
I can't hear anything.
Chair, I'm really sorry. I think we're losing you again, so I'm just going to turn my camera off as well.
Sorry. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes. Can you hear me now?
You can. Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Chair.
Only just. Okay. Yes. Sorry. Obviously, what was said today, I think, yes, if we start on obviously green spaces, etc., and then we can consider some of the other items raised during the presentation, i.e. the two key policy areas, etc. And what I could do, if that's all right, if I can liaise here and in the next few days and have a chat with him, then we can crack on if everybody's happy with that. Anybody any comments?
I don't know if anyone else is the voice cut off of the chair then.
Yes, Councillor Medder, I think what Councillor Turley was saying was he feels that members should start with the green aspect of the item that was discussed this evening, and then Councillor Turley will liaise with the scrutiny officer Kieran to try and plan in when that will take place, and then to try and progress some other items that were discussed this evening.
Yeah, yes, that's it. Did you get that, Raj?
Yes, I got it.
Okay.
Obviously, can I just say something, Chair, that
yes,
I'll be
please.
looking at this and I'll be feeding back within the next 48 hours to you.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
I said I will be feeding back to you the next 48 hours. Any suggestions?
Okay, that's lovely. And anybody else is very welcome to do that as well. Right, do we have any more issues we'd like to raise on the work programme review?
No.
Okay, in that case then, thank you very much to Anthea for the update. I'd like to go on to agenda item 7, Chair's update. I don't really have an update, except obviously I think I need to liaise with Councillor Julie Reynolds, Chair of the Environment Scrutiny Committee, and possibly have a chat with her, reference one of the suggestions, measures that the local plan could take to help tackle climate change, and it would be a view for us to have a joint, in due course, a joint committee meeting if everybody feels that will be suitable.
It's a very good idea, Chair.
Yeah.
Right, and has anybody else got? Oh, Anthea, over to you. Sorry.
Yes, Chair. Just not to curb your options. It might be that in discussion with the Chair of the Environment Scrutiny Committee, you decide that some sort of workshop or a couple of workshops to look at the climate change aspects of the local plan would be more beneficial, but I think that's a conversation for you and Councillor Gilly Reynolds to have, but it might be more productive potentially. So just to manage expectations in case you decide not to go down the committee route.
Okay, that's lovely. Thanks very much for the suggestion. Right, Eric?
Yeah, yes, Chair. I just wanted to say, just to repeat what I said earlier about getting a copy of tonight's presentation, but also just to say, and I hope I can understand other people may not feel the same, but I look forward to being able to have meetings around a table at some point when we can actually see face to face. I know it's not easy at the moment, but we do have considerable amount of space in Addenbrooke, and I look forward to the time when we can actually get back to some sort of normality around the table. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Eric.
Chair, can I just come in?
Yes, please, Raj. Yep.
Obviously, I welcome Eric's suggestion there, but obviously the safety at the moment where we're heading, we just need to be careful, that's all.
Yeah, agree. Perhaps it's something we could look into, hopefully, fingers crossed, at the beginning of the new year.
Yes.
When we've all had... We just have to stay as we are. As agree at the moment, and obviously until hopefully some of us do end up being vaccinated.
Yes, hopefully.
Fingers crossed. Hopefully, yes.
Yeah.
Chair, just if I could just come in on that point. Clearly, at the minute we're in a national lockdown, so we shouldn't be meeting in person. Any move towards meeting in person will clearly need to be risk assessed, and that's something that I will look at as part of my remit in relation to member support and member liaison, and also not just from a member risk point but also staff risk point as well. But it's something that as the council is well versed in the public health aspects, it's something that we'll very much manage at an appropriate time, so that hopefully we can resume some sort of face-to-face meetings in the not too distant future. But clearly it's a changing picture, so it's very uncertain at the moment.
That's lovely. Thank you for that. And all right, do you have another question, suggestion? Do your hand still up?
He's muted. Eric, you're muted. Hand's gone down.
Yes, sorry, I was muted. Sorry, apologies. No, I have nothing else to say now, Chris. I understand. The point I was making was only to meet when it's safe to do so, but I look forward to doing that in the new year. That's what we've been used to. Well, certainly I have over the last 30 years. Okay,
lovely. Thank you for that. Well, unless there's anything else to put on the table, I'd like to thank everybody for the attendance and submissions and etc. And if there's nothing else, I therefore
okay.
Be you soon.
Okay,
thank
bye
you.
For now.
Okay,
good evening. Good evening.
Okay, good evening.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye,
thank you,
bye.
members.
Bye-bye.
Bye.